Wonderful. Well, again, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for being here for our celebration of Guru Purnima. As I was saying previously, this is one of the most important days in the calendar of Vedic holy days. There are several days that are of extreme importance. Sri Krishna Janmashtami being one of them, the appearance day of Lord Krishna, Rama Navami, the appearance day of Lord Rama being another, and there are several others. One thing that Vedic culture is not lacking is holidays. There are many, many, many holidays. But again, some stand out, and for very important reason. Guru Purnima is one of those days that stands out. And as I said before, right now, and yesterday, which was really the exact day, but today as well, 1 billion followers of Sanatana Dharma are celebrating this day. And the reason why is because of the great importance of it. It is the day in which we celebrate and thank the gurus in our lives. And when we say gurus, of course, really, truthfully, there's no one who hasn't had a guru in one way or another. Because the term guru itself really is somewhat of a general term. It means teacher. It means anyone who is an expert in their field who then teaches. So really, we've all had gurus. Whether it was in first grade, in high school, in college, whether it was someone who was just there in our lives who guided us in a real way, in a true way, into going from a worse condition to a better condition. We've all had gurus. But then, of course, we know that the spiritual significance of the term guru is extremely important. The spiritual significance is this, that the guru is the individual who very specifically helps us to know ourselves, helps us to know God in the deepest of ways. And they do this certainly by teaching. A guru who can't teach is by definition not a guru. And what that means is to be able to teach is that they have to be able to answer questions. And they have to answer questions in a real way, legitimately. Not give a pat answer or a feel-good answer. They give the true answer. But more than this, more than merely teaching, the guru is the individual who teaches us and guides us by example. The guru is someone who, him or herself, because they are both men and female and women gurus. The guru is an individual who teaches us by their own example. They are an individual who, merely by watching them, we learn. In fact, more than that, not merely even by watching them, merely by being with them, very often, merely by being in their presence, we learn, and not just learn. Because learning, of course, when we speak about learning, the learning process itself tends to be mostly an intellectual process. By their very presence alone, we grow spiritually. We learn too, but truthfully, even more important than merely learning intellectually is growing from within, is becoming deeper, is becoming better in every way, is achieving excellence in all things, is achieving whatever healing we need in our lives, but then positively knowing the absolute, knowing that which is the absolute, and knowing that intimately. Again, not merely intellectually, but by experience. The guru brings that to us. Today, in the Kali Yuga, in this particular age that we find ourselves in, 2017, with American and Western and global culture as it is right now, that is as materialistic as it has ever been in the history of humanity. Today especially, the process of the guru, the principle of Sri Guru, is in a way the most controversial, the most almost dangerous thing on earth. Because today we are in an age in which you do not accept authority. Today we live in an age in which everyone seeks to be their own authority, where everyone claims that they have truth. Well, I have my truth. Well, that's your truth. You know? We live today in the age of anti-guru. I've never stated this before in these terms, but we live today in the age of anti-guru, where the very idea that there is an individual who knows more than me who is perhaps more advanced than me? How can there be such a thing in our era of radical egalitarianism, where we're all exactly equal? We're all sinking on the same ship, after all. The idea that there is an individual who perhaps is more advanced in every way, in their knowledge, but more importantly, in who they are as a spiritual being. And that more, I am to accept this person as my authority, learn from this person with humility, that is anathema to our current culture. So it's interesting. To seek a guru, to surrender to a guru, and to be a guru today is the most controversial of things, almost dangerous. I don't mean dangerous literally, physically, you know. But it's a dangerous position to be in, where with rampant skepticism about people, the idea that there is an individual who serves as a window onto spiritual reality and that that person is different from the mass of humanity is not acceptable today. And yet, this is one of the things that is one of the cores of our tradition, is that yes, if there is a God, then that God must have the ability to be known, otherwise that God is not God. If there is a God, to say that there is a God but we cannot know that God, then that's not God, because God has the ability, if God is omnipotent, to reveal himself. How, however, does God reveal himself? He doesn't do what the atheists claim that they would like, but which if actually happened, they would die on the spot of a heart attack. God is not going to appear before us. Rather, the way that God reveals himself to us is via an ambassador, via a way that won't give us a heart attack. Someone who looks like us, someone who seems like us, someone who was born in this world, who will eventually leave this world, but who inwardly is nothing like us. If only because that individual has traversed the path, that individual has achieved the goal of the path, so much so that even though the person is seemingly there physically as a visual being who, you know, if you had to, you could even reach out and touch them. They have physical presence, yet nonetheless, their service is to serve as a portal, as a window onto that spiritual realm. They are there with their physical reality, yet their service is such that you look through them to spiritual reality. That's the Guru. That is the Guru. My Guru, my primary Guru, Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Swami, called the spiritual realm the land of Gurus. This is one saying that he was famous for. The land of Gurus, the realm of Gurus. I personally, and I think most people here know this and some of the detail, I have been personally very, very fortunate to have had several truly amazing gurus in my life. I could almost say scarcely a day even goes by when this doesn't come to me and I think about this at least for a few seconds, if not longer. Because to find one authentic guru today, without exaggeration, it's almost impossible. Almost impossible. I've been fortunate to have found many such gurus, many such individuals. I've been very fortunate to have had truly amazing individuals in my personal life as teachers. And anything and everything that I am now is due to their grace and their mercy alone. And the only reason why I teach in this position as an acharya and as a guru is just to somehow please them. And hopefully it does. I want to read something, speaking of Narada Muni, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is not my translation, this is Prabhupada's translation. I just didn't have time to translate myself. But I want to read this. It's a little bit long. But it's from first canto, chapter 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's Narada speaking to his disciple Vyasa. Vyasa. Let that sink in for a moment. Vyasa.
Who wrote the Mahabharata.
Yes. This is the Vyasa who wrote the Mahabharata, who compiled the Vedas as we have them now as 4 books, and on and on. He was the humble disciple of Narada Muni. So this is Narada speaking directly to Vyasa, and speaking to him in a very personal way. He is explaining how he became Narada Muni. He is explaining how he became a sage so great himself that he counts among his disciples throughout history some of the greatest kings and queens, some of the greatest rajarshis, some of the greatest sages, even the gods are among his disciples, this Narada Muni. And here he explains how that happened, how he became who he is. So again, it's a little bit long. It's verses 23 to 30 of, again, Canto 1, Chapter 5. But I just want to read this entire thing at once and then very briefly comment on it. O Vyasa, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maidservant, engaged in the service of Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. While they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, Chaturmasya, that's called, I was engaged in their personal service. Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of Vedanta blessed me with their causeless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled and had no attachment for sports, even though I was a young boy. In addition, I was not naughty, and I did not speak more than required. Only once, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing, all of my sins were at once eradicated. Thus being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist, the yogi, became attractive to me. O Vyasa, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the activities, the attractive activities of Lord Krishna, and thus listening attentively, my taste for hearing about the Supreme Lord increased at every step. O Vyasa, as soon as I got a taste of the Supreme Lord, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching, and as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are in actuality transcendental. Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and the autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great-souled sages, these Mahatmas, constantly recite the unadulterated glories of Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished. I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. As they were leaving, those great sages, who are very kind to poor-hearted souls, instructed me in the most confidential subject, which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself. So, he himself, a great sage, in fact the greatest of sages, one could argue very easily, Sri Narada Muni. This is how he became who he is. This is how he became an individual whose mystic attainment, whose spiritual attainment is such that the greatest people in the cosmos seek him for guidance. How did he become this person? He became this person by, in his youth as a young child, serving such great sages himself, listening to them as they spoke about transcendental topics, serving them humbly with humility, copying the activities that he saw, the behavior that he saw in these people, these sages who were there, not moving for 4 months because it was Chaturmasya, this very important time where sages who usually are traveling for 4 months out of the year, they stay in one place and they encamp and they create a temporary ashram. This is how he became who he was. This is how he became transformed, because he knew what was the nature of the sage. See, today, everything that he just spoke about would be the very opposite of what people would consider practical. What? But don't you have any dignity in you? Thinking yourself a servant to someone? What's wrong with you? See, to do the easy thing, that most people can do. And what is the easy thing? To surrender and serve ego. But what is the hard thing? To relinquish ego and to surrender to and serve the sages. That is the hardest thing. It is in that, actually, that we have dignity. It is in service that we have dignity. So, such is the nature of the Guru, that the Guru has the ability to transform us, to take us as the child of, literally, as Narada said, a maidservant. He was the child of a maid. But because he served these sages for 2 seasons with faith, with humility, with sincerity, because he listened to them, because they instructed him, because he observed their behavior and he incorporated that behavior in his life. In his next life, he was this being who, to this day, is known as Narada, and who is the Guru of the cosmos. Such is the nature of Guru.